Hello, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Comic Book Chronicles. I am your host, Roddykat, and you can find me at Roddykat on Twitter. You can find me at NewsNerdsNeed on Twitter. You can find me at CBCaps on Instagram.
South Carolina with Columbia down the way.
And the sound effects you've heard come from none other than our man in Brooklyn, one agent_70 on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads.
What's up, everybody? Co-hosting from the Borough of Kings, coming in the middle of the Heat Dome.
Just a kid from Brooklyn.
And this here show, the Comic Book Chronicles, comes to you from the place we know as the Coast of the Podcast Network. Well, comes in junction with conjunction with the Coast of the Podcast Network, which is CSPN.us.
Do it today.
And you can also find us on your podcast approved place of choice, whether it be Apple iTunes, aka Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or the Coastal of the Podcast Network SoundCloud page.
Make sure to click like, subscribe, and leave us all the positive 5-star reviews, especially on Apple Podcasts, because that helps people find the show.
Yeah, and if you feel like catching us live, you can check us out on either the YouTube channel of The Kliq Nation, that's youtube.com/TheKliqNation, and twitch.tv/Comic Book Chronicles, where we record mostly every Thursday night, 9:30 Eastern Standard Time.
Yes, make sure to click like, subscribe, smash that like button, hit that notification button so that you know when we are on live.
And folks, we are going to kick this show off, starting off with a spoiler-free and/or light talk about Star Wars: The Acolyte, Season 1, Episode 4, called Day.
Yeah, so, I'll start off the conversation by saying that, there's a concept that was relatively foreign in Star Wars that I decided to roleplay once in a Star Wars role-playing game. And it turns out that we saw more of it in the Filoniverse as that expanded in the Star Wars universe proper. And now we saw one particular Wookiee Jedi, for at least a little bit. And ultimately, we have, I think, the deepening of some of the mystery. We may be getting some hints as to who the Dark Sith Lord really is. And the sniffing character, is it Basil? Basil,
yeah.
Basil, that character made me laugh. And with that, I'll hand it off to Roddykat.
Yeah, which, whenever they bring in creatures or other figures like that, that is pretty much what they're going for with that. So, you got another stuffed toy coming to you folks at some point.
Listen, if it does that scream, maybe, right?
Even with or without, but yeah, there's a pretty good chance they're probably going to make one that's going to do that. So, but yeah, that little fellow is probably the breakout of that of this here show so far. But we also get some possible not so hidden shadings as to who's behind things, or who's behind a certain quest that is happening with with one of the adversaries. But we also let's just say the Jedis get introduced pretty much in a allow me to reintroduce myself kind of way at the end of the episode, and to, as tends to happen in the Star Wars universe, something that they did not know was going on or was happening around them. So, and actually, speaking of guest spots that happened, we got a pretty much a cameo by a prequel Jedi that I was not expecting to see here, but I guess it makes sense that they would be around.
Sure.
Uh, in their younger days, I was like, wait, that can't be.
Slightly
Oh,
younger.
yeah,
Slightly younger.
yeah. Hey, what's 100 years or so, right?
Right. Well, for some of these alien races, it doesn't mean much at all. So
Exactly. But which actually I'm surprised we hadn't seen Yoda yet. But because we know he was around during High Republic and Yaddle, but rest in peace. But regardless, but I suspect they were like, we're not gonna even probably not even gonna do it, or just have him come in at the end for some other reason. But yeah, so there's some potential for revelations to be had next episode, because we have rounded the corner of this, or we are rounding the corner of this this series, because it's only 8 episodes and we're at the halfway point. So as Agent 7 kind of alluded to also, like, yeah, we see this, we see a Jedi, a certain Jedi for a little bit, and probably not the last time we're going to see um a Jedi, another Jedi or two leaving the show, because it feels like, and maybe it's just the senses tingling, but it feels like they're kind of laying on somebody not being around too much longer kind of thick.
right.
So whether that is going to be the case, and or whether that ends up being a swerve in the next couple of ish episodes, which I don't believe is, yeah, it's gonna happen. This is also Star Wars, so um it's just a matter of when. But overall, a pretty decent episode here. Didn't get this chance to Mother didn't come back this episode, but you know what? Hey, maybe there's going to be another flashback or two this is before the season. That would have to be, now that I think about it, because like I said, we still need to go back and get the whole picture on,
What
how
actually
Stark
happened
thinks.
on Brendock? So
Exactly. And I've seen a couple of theories floating around as to um what might end up happening, and I was like, okay, one of them's kind of bonkers, but is actually kind of plausible.
mhm,
Especially where it has to do with the main character.
right.
So it's just a matter of seeing whether any of that kind of holds true, or something else. But yeah, like I said, good episode. If you hadn't had a chance to check it out, do so, because it was a pretty decent one. And unless Agent 7 has got something else to say, we can push on.
Nope. Next up.
Alrighty, My Adventures with Superman, season 2, episode 5, Most Eligible Superman.
Right. So what starts out as a relatively silly premise actually evolves into some pretty crazy happenings between Lois, Clark, and was it
Cat Grant.
Cat Grant, one of the other reporters at the Daily Planet. I was like this close to saying Daily Bugle, and I'm trying to remember what else happens here, but there are definitely some slow. We're getting more rumblings towards where all this is heading at some point.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
it's been a while. It's the hard part about our show being on recording normally on Thursdays, and this show happened all the way on Sunday. I actually watched it, I believe, Sunday. So
Which is why I've pretty much taken to watching it not on Sunday, if I could help it, because that will happen easier than not. So,
all right. So what else happened? I'm starting to
we get
blank.
an introduction to some family, a piece of family.
Oh, that's right. I
Mhm.
bumped on that, and I think I forgot about that on purpose because I was like, Jimmy's a schmo. What are you doing?
Well, so I'm glad you mentioned that, because that, in addition to a couple of their interactions, may be reference to the Supergirl live action show,
Hmm.
because uh, a, Jimmy interacting with this character was pretty much the key part of that show, and
see.
including a couple of things that was referenced in this episode
I see.
and alluded to. So that is definitely probably a reference to that. And for those who don't know, we're talking about Jimmy meets Android 18,
Yeah, right.
which I've come to understand was a very deliberate reference point for how that character looks.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Android 18.
Yes, which was like, there's no way in your world if you watch Dragon Ball enough to where you would not see that and not go that. But that was the thing I think I definitely got spoiled on last Sunday because they was like, hey, here's something for the next episode or whatever the case may be and whatnot. I'm like, okay, all right, cool. But yeah, so we get that, and we get a little bit of drama between Lois and Superman because of the beginning shenanigans having to do with some contest, and keeping
Right, and Silver St. Cloud.
Yeah. Oh, not only so yes, there was that. I'm glad you mentioned that also because yes, I had to look up who that was because I had seen that name before, but I was like, wait a minute, that character would even be in this, like turn of out. Yes, they would, but also not with Superman,
Right?
Apparently, and actually a couple of other people on that stage.
If I'm not mistaken, that's more of a Batman reference. If I'm not mistaken,
correct. You are correct.
And I don't want to step on you, but I think I know where you're going with one of the other candidates on the show.
Right. Actually, two of the other candidates. Because, well, I think we've seen this character before because Hank Henshaw, I think, has been on the show before. And yeah, and those who know who that might be will know who that might end up being at some point where it sounds like it's starting to set up. But there was another person on that stage. Yeah, that was a person that I didn't know about either. And apparently they, also have some DC history in that, and I'm forgetting because like I looked up both of them at the same time. It's just like I know I had heard about Silver St. Cloud previously. So who are you thinking about?
Oh no, Hank Henshaw. I wasn't sure. I don't recall him appearing previously, so that's a interesting reminder that they've already kind of laid that particular groundwork,
right?
With that character.
Yeah, because I think they ended up going to Star Labs at some point, or maybe I'm thinking about the comic book, one of the two. But I could have sworn they had gone to Star Labs at one point, and he was there, like on him around or something. But yeah. So yeah, they threw a couple of little Easter eggs for folks to nibble on in this episode, which they've been doing a pretty good job of that between not just this season but last season, but just in general with that. It was like, yeah, if you know your DC enough, then you'll see versions of these other people you might know, if you know enough about it. So that's cool. And yeah, I think I'm trying to remember. I think it's only 10 episodes in this season. If I'm not
I read something like that.
Yeah, so which I think was pretty much the same as the last season, so wouldn't be a big surprise. So yeah, we're at the halfway point of that also, and it's definitely kind of a mini cliffhanger that it left on, but but I know the show's not taking a break, so we don't have to worry about that being the case going forward. But yeah, it was a pretty fun episode up until a certain point. Just say that much, and then it got kind of real in a way. But yes, that is that for my adventures with Superman. And now I guess Agent 70 wanted to mention a little bit about the latest episode of The Boys.
Sure. So obviously I'm not going to spoil it because this, I believe, came out today. It comes out at midnight or 3 a.m. and I happened to catch it earlier today. And there's obviously a lot of stuff happening. This is probably one of the better episodes of this season so far. There are a couple points I'd like to make. One, if I'm not mistaken, I saw something either in the news or in my news feed where the show is being review bombed because certain folks don't like how they're being uh, lampooned or satirized in this show.
We're actually going to get to that in the news. Yep.
Right. So I kind of chuckled when I thought to myself, what have you been watching for 3 seasons? You didn't pick up on this already before? Now you're just now picking up on it? Are they hitting you over the head with a bat now?
You know, people don't really like seeing themselves, or people don't see themselves until it's put in front of them, as you say, smacked in the head with it.
Right. So so ultimately, you know, I like this episode. This is a lot of there's a ton of things happening. Many of the stories, the story threads were picked up on in this episode. Very few were left dangling, if any. To be perfectly honest. So it was a pretty impressive episode of television, and you know, I think I recall seeing something in my feed, if not today, earlier this week, that the actor that plays Homelander, Anthony Starr, may very well be nominated because he's doing such great work. And I find myself in agreement. You know, it's a character, Homelander, that you just can't stand, but you also cannot keep your eyes off of because you're just interested in seeing what happens next. So there's a bit of a traffic accident quality to it, but also there's some compelling work being done. Listen, The Boys is not for everybody. The gross out factor, the violence factor is way up there because it's meant to shock. It's meant to, you know, kind of gross out. Some people just, that's not their cup of tea, and I get that. But if you don't mind that, or if you're okay with working with that, if you can work with that and cope with that, then by all means, give this a watch. And that's it.
Cool. Sounds good. All right, folks. Now we're going to get into the books of the week, starting off with Ultimate Spider-Man number 6.
All righty, Ultimate Spider-Man number 6 is written by Jonathan Hickman with art by Marco Cacchetto, colors by Matthew Wilson, and letters by VC's Corey Petit. So if there is one interesting takeaway from this issue, is that some things don't stay secret for very long. A whole 4 months long, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what I took away from this. You know?
Well, there's another thing I took away from it, but go on.
Well, I mean, ultimately, what we see is that one of Spidey's, you know, greatest enemies, not his greatest enemy, but one of his greatest enemies, has a bit of a power up in this Ultimate Universe, and you know, I thought that put him on a much different level than even the level that his 616 version is at,
which is
also
pretty formidable.
Right. Also, I really like, you know, this makes me miss the dynamic of Peter and Mary Jane more. Mm-hmm. Makes me hate whatever that loser's name is that Zeb Wells introduced even more. So, you know, and I'll pass it off to you. Take it away.
Yeah. So, as Adrian said, we did get an accidental reveal going on at the beginning of this, but it was kind of hard to hide given what we end up finding out in this issue. And the other takeaway that I got from it is that, you know what, sometimes when you go into a situation, you might need to think them through just a little bit. Because it didn't seem like Peter and Harry thought that completely through before they initiated their plans. But how are they supposed to know, right? So, but that's what made it kind of entertaining. It was like, yeah, y'all thought y'all fucked around and then found out. Very quickly. So, and yeah, the rest of the issue was like, oh, Mary Jane's about to take off the ponytail, so it's about to be, oh, okay, she's just being MJ. That's very supportive.
Right.
So I agree with Agent 70 with what he says. What he said about that, because that could have gone one or two ways, honestly. Even though she
Mhm.
would have still supported him, but she would have let him have it before that. But yeah, continues to be a good book, and surprisingly breezy for who wrote it. That always continues to amaze me about this about this book, because one is a different tone than a Hickman book would normally have, and two, pretty breezy in that, in what it's doing. So like I was going to say, this is almost as much of a shocker as Al Ewing doing Immortal Hulk after the stuff he's done previously, but not early. Just shows us out, just kind of shows you, hey, you know what? Some writers got layers that we
Right.
rarely get to see. So, but yeah, check out Ultimate Spider-Man when and or if you get a chance, if you are so interested in anything that we've just said. And with that,
Def-
we're good. Yeah, and
I
with
was going
that,
to say, I
oh,
think I
sorry.
failed to mention that this is definitely a candidate for Click of the Week.
Yes, I also failed to mention that, and you were right for mentioning that. So, and with that, we're going to keep in the Spider Corner with Amazing Spider-Man number 52, which coming off of Ultimate. If you read this after Ultimate, and you're probably me and or Agent 70, you're probably let down.
Just
I'm not speaking for him, but I feel it.
I mean, to a certain extent, we're kind of hate reading at this point. This particular series, because we just want to see where all this is going. We don't necessarily enjoy where it's going. We're curious.
Yeah.
Those are two very different things. So, Amazing Spider-Man number 52 is written by Zeb Wells, who is responsible for us kind of hate reading this, with pencils by Ed McGuinness and Todd Nock, with inks by Mark Farmer, Wade Von Grawbadger, and Todd Nock, colors by Marcio Moniz and Eric Arciniega, and letters by our favorite lettering python, VC's Joe Caramon. So we pick up right where we left off last issue. We have Chasm, Return of Chasm, against something that is the product of Norman Osborn's latest machinations, but somehow Chasm is able to at least temporarily straighten things out and make things better. Meanwhile, we also find ourselves with probably the one thing I don't mind about Zeb Wells' story, and that being the introduction of Kamala Khan as a co-star / supporting character in Spidey's story. Obviously, it's different because they brought her in to do a thing which they actually reference, that is to die, and two, they're very casual with her secret identity at this point. I'm like, wait, isn't this like post Krakoa? So they're just like shouting her name all over the place. Everyone knows, all these supporting characters in the Spidey universe know. But in any event, I'll hand it off to Roddykat with that, because I know that there's the reappearance of one character made me groan. It is someone who wrecks and maybe raps.
Yeah.
So I'll hand it off to Roddykat with that.
Yeah, apparently at the end of this issue, we were not done with that character because Zeb Wells hates us. But yeah, so I mean, yeah, the Kamala stuff was good, but then again, I feel like I'm taking it as, you know what, Zeb, you needed to make good after killing her in the first place for no apparent reason. Because let's face it, like there was some resonance that's supposed to be fired behind it, but realistically, what was the purpose? But that being said, the fact that she's still here and still on the case, as it were, is pretty good. And now she's kind of in line with that backstory that we saw that had to do with the the living walking brain and J. Jonah and all of them on the other side of that. So all of that is probably going to come together and is as Chasm and Goblin Spidey fight, which is weirdly reminiscent to me of what's going on in Miles now, and I guess another book that we're going to talk about in a minute. But the fact that hey, the character's got an affliction of some kind of way, and now it's been temporarily dealt with, so they can kind of hopefully get back to normal by some other means of which we will probably which we have seen.
Right.
I'm just going to make a prediction here. I don't think it'll happen, and I don't know whether I would care or not, whether it does or not. Suppose what's happened to Peter right now is going to get transferred into Rec Rap.
Oh God. Or Rec Rap.
Because I feel like that's something that they would do, but it wouldn't really affect him the same way that it does, that it has.
It would just make him happy?
I don't know if it would do anything. He's already a demon from Limbo.
Right, exactly.
So, he's already got demons in his brain. But I feel like that would be something that they would do. It was like, you know what, just to get rid of all that, blah, blah, blah. And Norman won't have it anymore, although Norman's got some other machinations going on, as Agent 70 said, that we might see some of something about sooner rather than later, right. As if Peter hadn't already had enough troubles on him as it is, and hasn't been in a similar bit of trouble previously, thanks to one of his bad guys doing something similar. Well, not doing something similar, but I guess that kind of was, but not in the same way. Regardless, hey, we've talked way too much about Amazing Spider-Man 52. I don't know how much longer this is gonna go on, but there's been good beats and there's been the rest of it, and this, I guess I know I keep saying, hey, the journey is one thing, but this is one journey that's kind of hit and mostly missed a lot of times.
Agreed.
And that being said, we're gonna push on.
Is it Blood Hunt time yet?
It is almost Blood Hunt time. We got to take a trip back into the Krakoan era real quick with Invincible Iron Man number 19.
Invincible Iron Man number 19 is written by Jerry Duggan, with art by Andrea Zivito, colors by Brian Valenza, and letters by our favorite lettering paisan, the hardest working letterer over at Virtual Calligraphy, VC's Joe Caramagna. I think Roddykat puts it best. We take a quick trip back into the fight against Orcus, because this issue, the events of this issue actually take place prior to the events of last week's Uncanny X-Men number 700, aka X-Men number 35. So we get to see a lot of things take place. We get to see a lot of plot threads, some things that we thought, we were kind of confused as to why they were why Duggan specifically established a couple of story points in the pages of Invincible Iron Man. We got to see that finally fulfilled. We got to see that storyline tied up with a nice, neat bow. I'm specifically speaking of the time that James Rhodes, aka Rhodey, spends in lockup. Why is he in lockup? Why is he making nice friends with some villains who, at least one of them, was probably in another book at some point? We don't know why or how.
Mm-hmm.
In another lockup, to be perfectly honest.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So ultimately, we have, I guess this is the penultimate issue of Invincible Iron Man, because that news dropped this week. And if you read this issue, you kind of know that there's only one chapter remaining in this Invincible Iron Man volume and story. And that is going to explain what happens with one of the relationships that were, that came about as the result of Iron Man becoming more intimately related to, literally intimately related to, the Krakoan era.
Yeah. And also possibly sets up either a new book or the next Iron Man book because of a potential formation of a team, which make me laugh because the name that Tony uses for the group is slightly similar to one I would have thought of, which I think I said Force Works Release.
Oh, I didn't even think of that. Oh,
It's because it's like, okay, this
oh.
and that's me and my adventures brain. What can I say? And all iterations therein. But yeah, also there was a piece of news in there that I'm not sure if we got in an X book properly about a certain building potentially getting wrecked or demolished.
Right. I don't think we saw that. That was news to me also.
Yeah, so I was like, okay, that's an interesting place to put that. But yeah, I'm kind of looking forward to that. Which, and as far as the that last relationship and the last chapter of his own, we kind of knew it was coming, unless that whatever happens next issue is going to be opposite of what probably most people at this point think is going to happen. Like maybe it's just kind of setting it up to be no, it's not that case, and there could be some further that's going on, but I seriously doubt it with that relationship. But yeah, the whole Rhodey and Tony thing, I guess, kind of got hashed out in this issue. The cover, not quite the way it went, but let's just say
it did kind of happen.
Yeah, there was a bit that got worked out in the course of the issue, but not to the extent that this as the cover might portray. Put it that way. But overall, yeah, but overall, it was a fun issue because of some things. Actually, another thing that came back from earlier in the volume, which that kind of foresight with the in setting up something for a long con is still continues to be impressive if it's something that you actually think about or have in mind going forward. And that thing I totally forgot about. Like, oh yeah, they spent this whole part of the beginning doing this one thing to kind of getting all this stuff together, almost World style, but never got brought up again up until now. So like, I applaud Jerry Duggan for that one.
Right.
So that ended up working out pretty well. So if anybody remembered it outside of like I said, me halfway thinking about it, and probably 8 to 7 and anybody else. So and we get to find out about what happened to the Tony's adversary, so-called adversary, who is potentially named after a Street Fighter character. Which I know that's not the case, but I'm just doing that anyway.
Listen, that was our reference. That's our point of reference to that name.
Mm-hmm. This is true. That's true. And with that, we are going to get now. I believe we are going to get into the Blood Hunt corner of the Marvel Universe with, which by the way, happy 616 Day because it was a couple of days ago. That's not a real thing, but hey, I'm call it anyway. I got the wrong book up. Doctor Strange number 16 is our next book.
Doctor Strange number 16 is written by Jed MacKay, the architect of Blood Hunt, with art by Pasquale Ferry, colors by Heather Moore, and letters by VC's Corey Petit. So if you are unfamiliar with the family tree of Doctor Strange, you get a quick primer on it in the last several issues and this issue. If you are curious as to how all of this plays together, you may want to consult one of our favorite tools, not a sponsor, Marvel Unlimited, and see if some of those issues are available. They may not be, because a lot of this stuff is older. It's stuff that I only learned about by reading Oh Hotmo. So, it all started to sound very familiar to me as I read this issue and started to see how things weave together. Bottom line, though, this issue basically happens in the halls of and the magical halls of the Sanctum Sanctorum, and it is Wong versus an assailant that's not exactly unknown to him, right? This has been teased over the last couple of issues, and it seems like at the end of the issue, what's teased is the cavalry being made up of some very unlikely folks.
Yes.
So hand it off to Roddykat with that.
Team Bats. Enough said. Let's push on. Now, but yeah, that's the most of it. We do, because this is a Blood Hunt tie-in, we do get we get some of that in the form of not only the aforementioned familiar assailant being involved, but the fact that the big bad kind of comes in, I guess, coaches, goads, I guess, if you want to say it, this character into action. And also, I guess if Agent 70 hadn't said, this does take place in between Blood Hunt 3 and 4, which I don't think 4 is out yet, now that I think about it. So 3 was the last book that we read. But
okay.
But they do give that context at the beginning of the book. So, therein lies that. Yeah, there's not much else. Team Bats for the win. That's all I'm gonna say. Next up, we get into what we have deemed to be a potentially important tie-in book of Blood Hunt. Dracula, Blood Hunt number 2 of 3.
Yes, so this issue, Dracula Blood Hunt number 2 of 3, is written by Danny Lore with art by Vincenzo Caratu, colors by David Curiel, and letters by VC's Joe Sabino. So in our pre-production meeting, Roddykat and I were talking about this issue very briefly, and I mentioned that we had speculated, just based off of the first issue, based off the contents of the first issue and what happens in the first issue, that this is probably one of the major tie-in series in this Blood Hunt event. Obviously, it revolves around the titular character, the usual Lord of the Vampires, Dracula. But it also has a lot of happenings with Brielle, the daughter of Blade. And that is the central part of this issue, is her kind of journey that is, that's happened over the first 2 issues here. We've seen bits of it in the main miniseries, but it's really fleshed out in this series more so than anywhere else. And that's why I think this is probably going to be one of the more important tie-ins. And we get to see a lot of Brielle's kind of hero's journey to a certain extent. I'm not familiar with her other appearances so far. I know that she appeared in the Free Comic Book Day book. I don't know how much more we've seen of her hero's journey other than her, kind of understanding what her origin is, what her powers may or may not be. And I feel like this has done a lot to help introduce the character to a wider audience.
Mm-hmm.
Despite the fact that it's a tie-in, you'd hope that they would have maybe done a little bit more of this in the main miniseries, but I guess it's one reason to help sell the tie-in.
Yeah, I guess that in a way is, you could say, well, so there was a previous book that she had written actually by Danny Lore prior to this. In fact, it was prior to that Blade that Blade book that just ended, which was not written by them. But yeah, she had a book. I can't remember how many issues. I think it was like 4 or 5 issues, and that's where her power set and whatnot was more out,
explored, right?
Yeah.
But in terms of like her actual like journey of like dealing with what it means to take on this heroic mantle, this issue does a lot for that. Because she runs into a certain hero, and it's a hero that chooses to listen.
Given his I guess is it still his current occupation?
Well, I mean, both of his main occupations would lend themselves to being a good listener.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. But like, is that still going on in his book, or did they kind of?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
It's still going on.
Okay. Yeah, that was the thing I had. So because that's why I put it in my notes. Like, well, he is a priest, so I guess it makes sense he would be. And I mean, not saying he wasn't a good listener before then, but yes, it kind of plays into that. And yes, in that Bloodline book, there was a little bit of exploration into her hero journey, at least starting off. And as Agent 70 said, yeah, this one is kind of furthers that. Whether we end up seeing any more of her journey after this, outside of this event, I should say, is up in the air, I guess, at this point. But worth noting that this story takes place after Blood Hunt 3 and after that Miles Morales tie-in book from last week, because the 1 and the 2, and then coming into this, and I guess leads back into, because ends up which you would think, because the name of the book is called Dracula, yes, he's in there, but like I said, she's been the focal point of this book, of this issue, before he kind of comes back into play at the end of this issue. Despite it, well, excuse me, not even at the end, in the midst of the issue, which actually brings up something else in relation to the guest appearance. Daredevil has seen a lot of things. You would think.
Well, seen is figurative.
Well, but you know what yes. No pun, definitely no pun intended there. But he's been through a lot. I can't, and even I guess he may have had some supernatural adventures at some point at time.
Oh, recently.
Right.
Recently, he went to hell and came back.
Okay. That being the case, you would think
that's what he's referencing. That's what he's referencing in the story.
Oh, okay.
Like,
so
he went too far, and then his friends brought him back.
Oh, I thought it was something like Shadow, Shadow thing, whatever that was, when he just went dark, or went pretty much went full on.
Oh, the Shadowland. Yeah. I remember
stuff.
that. No, this is the recent stuff.
Okay. No. Yeah. So yeah. But that being said, like I said,
it's the culmination of Zdarsky's story.
Right. But my point is, like, you would think he would know better. That being said, to attack the Lord of the Vampire.
He didn't care. That's Daredevil for you.
Clearly. No,
he did not care. He's like, well, I've got to protect her from him, and that was that.
I mean, he is the man without fear, so that
right.
part was apparent. But
right.
You've heard of the name Dracula before. You're like, yeah, like you said, he clearly didn't care. That's what kind of made it funny. I was like, wait, you should know better, and you're a priest, so I don't know if that's part of the priest training. Like, you had no, you knew vampires were around. You didn't have any holy water or anything, or any stakes going around with you, huh?
No silver. Yeah,
right.
I know.
Right, none of that. Knowing, and he knew. It's not like he didn't know the situation. Coming into this, what halfway was going on. So, but regardless, that's nitpicking on the story. Like, it is still a good issue. So that's just, like I said, nitpicking out loud about it.
Take it up with Danny Lore, because ultimately, I think, when it comes down, the way they write Dracula depends from writer to writer, right? Yeah. And we know that obviously Dracula is this version, Marvel Comics version of Dracula is probably on the higher end of the power scale when it comes to all of the versions of Dracula that we're accustomed to in popular culture.
Mm-hmm.
And it's when we often see Daredevil and obviously he's on a lower power level than Spider-Man, but we see these street level heroes really go after these like very much powerhouse characters just because that's their nature. So
right. And like that. Yeah, and I enjoyed Danny Lore's story, so it's not nitpicking.
What I was going to say though, just to add in, you would think that maybe Daredevil would have retreated to retrieve some of those things that he could use to fight vampires, but maybe he hasn't had that opportunity yet, because they keep. If there's one thing that I've noticed in these Blood Hunt stories, is that they keep putting up. Well, maybe not all of them, but a lot of them put up the clock is like T minus, since the sun went away, like let's say it's like 24 hours, 29 hours. I know that happens in the Black Panther book. that we're probably going to talk about very quickly, if not here or in rapid fire. They do put that clock up so that you have an idea of how long things have been going on.
Yep. And with that, so yeah, like I said, Dan Lord usually do great stuff, and I'm not saying this is not great because, but that just was like, hey, come on. But and that's the way I wanted to ask. I don't think Daredevil has any other, doesn't have any other Blood Hunt ties outside of this, right? That we know of.
I don't know. I don't think it's crossing over into the main book, but we'd have to take a look at the checklist.
Or yeah, like there might be a one shot somewhere because we know there are people that are getting one shots that we did not know previously.
Right.
So that being the case, we will get to our last book for discussion, which is also blood related. Black Panther Blood Hunt number 2 of 3.
Black Panther Blood Hunt number 2 of 3 is written by Cheryl Lynn Eaton with art by Fareed Karami, colors by Andrew Dahlhaus, and letters by VC's Joe Sabino. I think the most interesting part of this issue was the historical vampire references that are not rife in the rest of the Blood Hunt tie-ins or the Blood Hunt story. Everything here, just smacks of like going down because of the nature of the story, because they're involving the pantheons of both Eastern and Western Africa, and because of how it ties into Black Panther story, and we get a appearance by Khonshu as well, and we see how the story of the original vampire, I guess, may have intersected with some of these pantheons, and that flows into the present and the mission that the Black Panther has been put on by Blade. And with that, I will hand it off to Roddykat.
Yeah, it is amusing to see Khonshu showing up in another Black Panther book because if you're reading Ultimate Black Panther, there is a version of Khonshu, or I guess one of his acolytes or whatever the case may be, showing up. So, which probably not the first time that I'm thinking about it. But anyway, but yeah, this book for the history part is probably somewhat important. I'm not going to say like germane to Blood Hunt, but it does give, I guess, some historical context to vampires in the Marvel universe. In relation to this, so I guess that is something to have this book out for. The only other thing I'm going to say before letting it go is like, sure, should know better than to strike up another conversation with Doctor Doom. Has she not learned from that other time, where I'm pretty sure, well, if I'm not mistaken, after or around where she died. Now, granted, this doesn't end up like that. It was like even T'Challa, I think, mentioned it in the first book. It was like, what are you doing? What are you thinking? Not towards that, but like, come on, you should know better. Jeez, man, jeez, woman, excuse me. But either way, yeah, whatever it's going to come out of this Black Panther Blood Hunt book outside of I guess, or I should say, whatever's going to fold back into the main story coming out of this, I guess we're starting to see seeds of um, in this issue, and probably likely next issue, which will be the last one for the miniseries. And I guess by that time, the next issue of Blood Hunt will happen. So whether anything will fold back into from here into that, I guess we will see.
Right. Next week is, I believe, another Blood Hunt main issue week. So I think we're going to get Blood Hunt number 4 out next week.
I believe that is the case. Yeah, and probably a whole nother slew of other books that were probably. So here's the thing about this week and last week's book. There are a couple of issues. If you look at the checklist, there's some stuff in the checklist that should have, well, technically comes in the checklist before some stuff that from last week, but came out this week, including I think Doctor Strange and Dracula. Probably most of them. Now that I think about it, but like I said, it just came out this way. That doesn't necessarily mean this is kind of one of those situations in other words that, well, the checklist and the story being what it is kind of what it is. There's nothing that like the luckily they did like say, hey, this story takes place then, this story takes place then, that kind of situation. But does it seem important for that knowledge in the last couple of weeks to be kind of put together? Yeah, you can decide for yourself. But I'm like, nah, not really. If you even keep up with it and with the with the furthering of the main miniseries next week, you'll see. I guess that's the point. Like, as long as stuff kind of comes out by the next book, or the next main book, if it has anything, important to add to it, then therein lies the thing. So, with that, we are going to go into rapid fire reviews.
All righty, I'm going to spin it up. We got a lot of books to get through. Rapid fire review time.
I ain't got time to bleed.
All right, first up for me is Nightwing number 115. It's written by Tom Taylor, with art by Bruno Redondo, inks by Caio Felipe, colors by Adriano Lucas, and letters by Wes Abbott. This is a clear-cut candidate for Click of the Week for me because we get to see the plans that Heartless has been putting into place really pay off, because he's really trying to take down Nightwing, aka Dick Grayson, and how he does it in this issue is in some ways some master planning, right? Some real master planning. And when you get to see it from Dick Grayson's perspective, especially at the end, it's pretty, you can see that the story is very well put together. Next up is Captain America number 10, which is written by J. Michael Straczynski, with art by Jesus Saiz, colors by Matt Hollingsworth, and letters by VC's Joe Caramagna, our favorite lettering paisan. Cap has found his second changemaker, but not everything is as it seems. It's an interesting way to bring out some more mutant issues, but at the same time, keep it separate and apart from the Krakoan stuff that's happening. Bottom line, though, this changemaker stuff is interesting. I'm still not a fan of, so much magical things happening in the pages of Cap, but it's well written, and the art by Jesus Saiz is super solid. So it's been a good read. Next up is Captain Marvel number 9. It's written by Alyssa Wong, with pencils by Ruari Coleman, colors by Brian Valenza, and letters by VC's Ariana Mar. We finally get to see what this Omen and all of this stuff is leading towards, and how all of it has seemed to connect to each other over the last several issues. I particularly like the characterization of Carol in the pages of her own book right now, because Alyssa Wong has done a good job of really bolstering the supporting cast, really creating Marvel's version of a Marvel family. These are not characters who share a particular power, but they do carry certain legacies and certain characteristics and certain connections that keep them related to each other in ways big and small. And I really appreciate that they've done not just creating new supporting characters, but creating new connections or reestablishing connections with other characters to really strengthen the supporting cast of the book. I can skip over Doctor Strange and Dracula Blood Hunt. Next up is Immortal Thor number 12. It's written by Al Ewing, with art by Valentina Pinti, colors by Espen Grundetjern, and letters by VC's Joe Sabino. This is another candidate for Click of the Week because guess what, folks? if you thought that you were confused before as to why there was some gods stuff with in-betweener stuff and eternity stuff happening in the pages of Thor, now it starts to make sense. Now all that stuff happening makes some sense. Whether or not you're happy with the results, well, we'll see. But bottom line, though, when we get to the end, you find out that there are some things that Al Ewing is leading towards, and we'll see how all that is going to play out. I firmly believe that this story is going to read so well in a collected edition. It's going to read phenomenally well as a collected edition. Next up, I believe Roddykat also read this book, and it's the last one in my list. It's Sensational She-Hulk #9. It's written by Rainbow Rowell with art by Andre Genelay, colors by D. Cuniff, and letters by our favorite lettering paisan, VC's Joe Caramagna. She-Hulk's working through some stuff. She's working through what is, she's not sure what she wants, right? She gets an offer that she may or may not be able to refuse. This is not something that's coming from oh my God, why is this escaping me? Don Corleone, but rather from Carol Danvers. And she's not sure if she wants to refuse it. In order to try to work out some of those issues, she's got to go to her own fight club, which is kind of fun to see. But this issue is mostly whining and dining. And, I didn't think that it was necessary for that, but I guess, Rainbow Rowell, felt that, telling this particular story was necessary. I guess we don't get to see this recruitment process that often, but I thought it was funny that she thought that she wrote in that She-Hulk felt that she wasn't all that powerful compared to the rest of the current members of this particular group. So I'll leave the floor for Roddykat to throw in his thoughts on the book.
Yeah, I agree with what Adrian said. The only thing I'll say is that, normally when it comes to, and I guess it also, of course, depends on who's writing, She-Hulk's usually gung-ho about joining the Avengers or the Fantastic Four, whichever group, wants her. But for her to say a couple of things that she said in here, I guess kind of brings up something like, what, we never really think about it. How she thinks about how they want her in the group. And Carol was coming on very strong with the recruitment drive, which, as Adrian said, we don't normally get to see, but normally we don't necessarily need to see because, like I said, Jen's usually be like, "Hey, yeah, get me up here." But because of how this book is being set up, and she's trying to have a life, much less a love life, outside of that, plus with who it is in relation to the Avengers at this point and their and their involvement
History,
in the past.
right?
Yeah,
History.
exactly.
Yeah.
So it's easy to see how, if you know that history, it's easy to see, like, okay, I get some of this. But yeah, it definitely did seem like some of the feelings that she was having was like, wow, you don't normally ever get to see some of these feelings from Jen like this. So it's interesting to see. Also, there was a Hakeem Olajuwon reference in the book, which, I don't follow sports, but I know who that is. Seeing a Hakeem Olajuwon reference in 2024 was nothing I'd expected to see out of anything anytime soon. Also, there was a 2001 reference in relation to the Avengers' new headquarters, which was amusingly handled.
Right.
Yeah, good stuff. Awkward, and also an awkward Thor moment. Sorry, had to bring that up.
Oh, you know what's funny? I'm glad that you mentioned that because this is the last book on my list, and I'll hand off rapid fire reviews to you. But I like that because it means that they did not sweep the recent Avengers run under the rug.
Right.
Right. That a lot of that stuff did happen, but it happened in a sense before this volume of Sensational She-Hulk, right. Or even the volume before, right?
Right.
So it's it makes sense that they would pick up on that, at some point. because that was actually a pretty big part of that story, if I'm not mistaken. That
Relatively.
particular volume of Avengers, at least in terms of the relationships. It wasn't
Right.
like a driver of the story,
Right.
but in terms of the relationships formed, who wrote that? Was that
Jason Aaron? Is that Jason Aaron?
yeah, that was Aaron. Yeah, that
I
was
think so.
Jason Aaron's. Yeah, that
Yeah.
was Jason Aaron's Avengers with
Yeah.
the Celestial.
Mm-hmm.
The Celestial base. Yeah, that was Jason Aaron. Yep.
Speaking of, we'll be talking about him in a little bit. But, okay,
Yep.
yeah.
That's it for me. Go ahead.
Alrighty then. First up for me is Destro, number 1 of 5. I was going to ask Agent 70 if he got around to checking this out, but obviously since he have it on this thing, probably not. On the sheet, he probably not. Written by Dan Waters, art by Andre Bresson, excuse me, colors by Adriano Lucas, and letters by Russ Wooten. So last we saw Destro, he and Cobra Commander was striking up a partnership in the pages of Cobra Commander's last issue. It was a mini series, and in this, at least once we get past the preview pages, that surely people have seen in other books if you've been paying attention or if you've been following. Their relationship is as contentious as ever. Not surprising. Um, so and they played that out quite well here before seeing Destro kind of get into some stuff that has to do with the preview. I don't want to give too much of it away, but let's say a small country is involved, some arms deal under the table, arms deal that a cousin that I'm not entirely sure was a thing previously to this. And of course his trademark badass toys and what happens not necessarily in relation to them, but what happens to Destro near the end of this book. I guess is going to be that's going to be the driving force of this book, and of course references to a certain other company in this universe that we hadn't up until now seen too much of, but we do get a little bit from in this book. So the miniseries have done, if they've done anything, they have definitely fleshed out other parts of the universe that people are kind of wondering and asked about in different ways, and this is no different. Next up is Star Trek number 21. Excuse me. Written by Colin Kelly and Jackson Lansing, art by Megan Levins, colors by Lee Luffridge, and lettered by Clayton Cowles. So yeah, the crew have, in case you did not know, space apparently has edges, borders, but you would not know that unless you play space-based video games, and which kind of makes this feel like one in a way. But the crew has breached the boundaries of space and time in order to help out one of, well, not necessarily one of their own, one of what they thought there was their own, who ended up being a part of a cosmic cadre and of groups in the Star Trek universe. And we also get a meeting of said cadre in here, who, because they seek help, the crew seeks help from them for a certain thing. And on the other side of that, we got one Beverly Crutcher, who's basically trying to find her son, who at last we saw, if you've been paying attention to the Star Trek universe, is probably would be in a place like this because of what that character got into. And I believe, and that and another character from Star Trek Picard kind of shows up in this book for, well, they don't, but another character from Star Trek Picard shows up in this issue for a reason that seems counter to their original personality, but I guess, being what they are now has changed them. So this is definitely stuff that they take from the live action stuff and use in this book. Next up Going back to what I just mentioned with a certain writer. How the covers. Uncle Scrooge and the Infinity Dime, written by Jason Aaron of all people, with art by Paulo Matura. For the main, well, for the first chapter. Second chapter is pencils by Francesco Dipolito and inks by Lucio De Giuseppe. The third chapter is art by Alessandro Pastrovicchio and Vitale Mangiafori. And I apologize if I butcher any of these names, but there's a lot of Italian names in this book. And the epilogue is art by Giada Perez Sonata. Letters by colors by Ariana Consani and letters by BC Joe Caramagna. And there's a backup, which is a reprint of the original story that this is kind of based on by Carl Banks, who does the scripting and art for that, which the story is called Christmas on Bear Mountain. And you will see where that plays into things in a second. But the most I will say without giving too much away is that Jason Aaron pretty much took a Disney story and Marvelized it in a pretty spectacular way. And there's a potential click of the week for me because of that. And I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one who's like, okay, Jason Aaron writing an Uncle Scrooge book. That can't be right, one. And two, there's got to be something else to it. And sure enough, there absolutely is. But with what I just the statement that I just said about what he did with the story, so it's some good stuff, folks. If you appreciate any of that.
Yeah, that's a lot of Italian names there.
Yes,
I was just looking at the credit page.
Yes, there is, but it's to good.
Making me hungry now.
Yeah, but it's right. But it's a good effect because I know they were going for an art style here, and the art style was similar to Carl Banks's art for the original story.
Right.
And I guess who better to do it than a bunch of Italian artists who can kind of do a style like that some justice. Yes, that's the way I'm thinking about it. I don't know if it was the reason before it, but yeah, but it works out. It works out.
Well, I wouldn't say just Italian, but definitely European, right? There's definitely a European flair to a lot of the animated Disney stuff, that we've seen published.
Yeah, that's true.
That's a style that is not necessarily American comics. It's not obviously not Asian comics, manga based either from Japan or Korea. So it's interesting to see. That's where this particular, where the Disney style of comic art has flourished. Which it's in Europe, and it's not all that surprising. That's where Tintin is, and that's where some of the other famous ones that don't come to mind right away. But it's no surprise.
Right, and I think the Disney stuff, especially like the even the adult Uncle Scrooge stuff or whatever, they got a good life over in Europe. So yeah, that also kind of makes some sense as to that. But yeah. Anyway, last book for me, but yeah, check that book out. It's pretty amazing. And that is not me being hyperbolic, actually. Spider-Woman number 8 is my last book. Cover. Definitely not that one. We need Agent 70 might later though. Spider-Woman number 8, written by Steve Fox, art by Ed Guara, colors by Ira Prianto, and letters by DC's Joe Sabino. So she's still out west. She's trying to basically get to Hydra and disrupt things because she's still trying to find her son. Hydra has this shell company that apparently has sponsored a young superhero group made of some legacy adjacent ish characters. None that we've seen before prior to this book, mind you. But yeah, all the same. And we come to find out in this issue, I guess how deep, or not necessarily how deep, we get to see who's kind of behind a couple of things in it. Like we already knew Hydra was behind it. We already knew Viper was behind it because that's who Justice has been after, but also who's been working with her. Who, if you're watching the cover, is let's just say involved with the hands that you see on the cover in an adversarial way. That they're a part of things. So I know Agent 70 is a little behind in his book, but once he catches up, he'll know who I'm talking about. But yeah, so that Justice pretty much getting the information and then gets into something. Oh, and speaking of folks, actually, real quick, that is a deep cut. There is a certain character that shows up in here that is known for screaming. That shows back up in here. I was like, now that is a cut I hadn't seen in quite a while. Like that was,
Listen, it's a character I only know from Ohatmu.
Yeah, kind of. I feel like I might have read something that character in because they were like a one or two off in a certain other group or something. But yeah, like it's been a while since I've seen that character, and it's like that's wild. So you know, therein lies that. And with that, folks, that is it for me. Kliqs of the week.
Kliqs of the week. I have some clear-cut candidates.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely do. They're Ultimate Spider-Man number 6, Immortal Thor number 12, and Nightwing number 115. I'm gonna have a very tough time because they stood out. I've read a lot of books this week. It's one of the perks of having some extra time because of no commuting today. You know, I was very happy. Those are the 3 books that stick out, you know, most amongst this very large pile of books I read this week. And I'm going to have a tough time figuring out my favorite. How about you?
Let me add a couple more to your plate, if you don't mind. These are not serious picks, obviously, but if Agent 70 saw these or not, I don't know. Rom, the original Marvel Years Omnibus hardcover, I believe, came out this week.
Oh, did it finally? Good.
Yeah, I saw the listing. I saw the cover for it, so that is apparently is out there. In fact, I've seen some other people who are like, "Yes, we're getting this. That means that could very well mean Marvel could be getting it back or something." Like, and it wasn't Agent 70 that said that, so that was kind of funny to see other ROM fans out there. And the other one is, I shouldn't probably show certain covers of this one, but Gun Hunting Collision Course number 2.
Oh,
of which I almost picked up a copy of one of the variants.
Did we not get a copy of that this week?
No, I didn't see one out there.
Oh.
So
all right.
So actually, no, wait. Actually, that might be a lie. With that,
right. Well, hopefully we'll have a chance to circle back to that because I don't think I read the first issue. So
right. But that being said, for myself, Destro number 1 is definitely a pick. What was my others? Oh, Ultimate Spider-Man, just like Agent 70 as well. And Uncle Scrooge was the other one. So,
yeah, I'm pretty torn. It's rare that I'm this torn. It really is because I could probably narrow it down to Nightwing and Ultimate Spidey.
Mm-hmm.
Immortal Thor is great, but I could probably narrow it to Nightwing and Ultimate Spidey. And I'm really having a tough time deciding. I may very well have to flip a coin.
So you can use your, I leave this up to you, but if you want to use your, I don't have a quippy name for it, but if you want to, two of them, you are allowed to do that for this. We don't use those too many times, but there are
Yeah,
certain occasions
yeah,
that where, like, there are books that are just that good. So, but
yeah.
from a
It's rare for me to run into this type of issue. I
right.
usually just pick one and go with it.
And I'm just going to go ahead and give it to Uncle Scrooge and an Infinity Dime. Like I said, shout out to Destro because it was pretty good, and Ultimate Spider-Man, which is, but that's usually continuously good. So oh yeah, Iron Man also was pretty good this week because it was fun. But yeah, also that Uncle Scrooge book was kind of I was not expecting that,
Right,
or I
right,
should have, I guess.
right.
That is
And I'm going to tell you, I think I think I'm going to call it a tie this week for
okay.
the first time in maybe ever for me, between Nightwing number 115 and Ultimate Spider-Man number 6. It's 6, right?
Yes.
Ultimate Spider-Man number 6. And I'll tell you why, folks, because I think the cliffhanger pages or cliffhanger panels, because I don't believe um, it was a splash page, but it was it was a kind of a the last panel in Ultimate Spidey sold that book for me because it sits in my brain rent free. The same thing. It's the same issue. It's the same thing with Nightwing number 115. That image pops right into my head on the cliffhanger splash page at the end of the book. So I give both creative teams a lot of credit for making it so difficult for me to choose one, so I have to choose both.
Right. And with that, folks, um, you heard it here first. The first, well, probably the one of the first ever tie weeks with for Agent 70
Right.
on recorded history. That's probably when we used to do them a little bit more frequently.
Maybe it's hard. I honestly don't know if I've ever come down with two clicks of the week in 1 week.
I know I have it and I joke, but it hasn't been that often for me either. But I know I do recall once or twice when we had the full crew. I was like, you know what? I can't decide. Let me just blah blah with
Pick.
both.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And with that, folks, we're going to go into the news section while I type this up. Can we get our first ad read?
Our first ad read of the night is for Wink, the personalized wine club. Wink is a world of wine delivered right to your door. From rosé to cabernet to torronté, Wink has over 100 styles of wine to discover. Ever try an orange wine? Wink connects you to a world of exclusive wines tailored to your tastes and delivered directly to your door. Wink delivers 4 bottles of wine to you every month with free shipping. You can pick your own bottles or let Wink choose and match to your taste. It doesn't cost a thing to become a member, and you can skip or cancel anytime. And now the listeners of the Comic Book Chronicles can enjoy an exclusive discount of $20 off your first order. To place your first order with $20 off and to help keep our show free for you, go to our network website at cspn.us/wink. That's cspn.us/WINC. Wink wines through CSPN. Do it today. Now we get into the news.
Close enough. We start off with some sad news, which not necessarily comic related, but you'll understand. Donald Sutherland has passed away at the age of 88. Um, he is known for many things, such as MASH, The Hunger Games. Um, his list goes on and on. The Exorcist. Um, and just a lot of roles that he has played over his career. So, and yeah, you I'm not sure. Does it say what has to? Um, Oh no, this is a long ass article going over his acting credentials. Which, like I said, the man's had a long history. So, also, yeah, some might know him as the father of Kiefer, by the
Right.
way. So,
It
which,
says long illness.
oh, okay. But yeah, rest in peace, sir. And there you go. I don't think he's done any any comic book stuff, but I did see something with Haley Atwell, but that was not anything. But next up.
Alrighty, one moment. Alrighty, you can watch the trailer for something called Supercell, which fans are excited for, and they're calling it a British X-Men. So this is on Netflix, and it is a London-based superhero drama. And if you watch that trailer, people, I guess, are comparing it to X-Men and Misfits. Okay.
So yeah, Misfits, if you are British, you would know that show. You would probably make this connection to that over X-Men probably. And I've seen a couple of episodes of Misfits to know that and I've seen this trailer to know that yeah, I can definitely see that. Also, shout out to Von Gloom in the chat, which I'll get to some of his stuff in a little bit, but because I just noticed he had been posting or had been commenting. But yeah, I saw that trailer. You should check it out if you are interested in it, especially if you're a fan of Misfits. And I don't know when this is actually. We have a date for this. June 27th is when it's going to come out on Netflix.
Next week.
Yep. Next up, Star Wars Prodigy Season 2 is finally has a Netflix release date, and it'll arrive before Paramount Plus's Starfleet Academy. I guess that's the prize, I guess. So let's see. Netflix saved the popular Star Trek animated series and gifted it to people for Christmas Day, according to this article. That's some funny writing there. But it looks as though are we getting season 2? Quite say. But either way, you can see the first season on Netflix right now, and yeah, I don't see a date, but apparently it's before Star Trek Academy coming out, which at this point is probably going to be a while anyway. Oh, 22. What is that? Happened. Anyway, 2025 is when Star Fleet Academy is going to happen. So I suspect before the end of this year, we'll see season 2 of Star Trek Prodigy, which I've never watched. So next up.
Recently, Dave Filoni appeared on the Happy, Sad, Confused podcast alongside Rosario Dawson and Hayden Christensen and shared an update about his movie and the status of Ahsoka Season 2. Quote, because he's been writing Ahsoka Season 2, things have clicked and he's got a much better idea about where things are going to go. He'll say he has an opening he really likes quite a bit. He's very excited for that film picture. And he's excited about the potential of just doing it. Right now, his focus is clearly on Ahsoka as well as the rest of the galaxy and how it's spinning. Okay.
Sure. As one Filoni does. Oh, let me get a couple of these really, really quick. So, yes, like I said, Von Gloom is in the chat. He said, welcome in, sir. Tardy, but still ready to party. Good to see you. Destro was superb. Yes, it was. The Cobra honeymoon is over, as always. I'm not going to mention that next one because, like I said, I don't want to spoil it for folks. But yes, I agree with you there. It was nice to see them. No one likes or cares about Wesley Crusher. That's not true. Like Sheldon, we don't like Will Wheaton. Just kidding.
No.
Yes. Well, Anyway, we won't get into that. That's like people like Will Wheaton, but also he's actually kind of been He's still just as nerdy as Ned, but I know some people don't like him because of his character, which is stupid. It was like, okay, he's an actor that played a character. He's not his character. Calm down. Although there's been a
Right.
couple of times where he's played other similarly disliked characters intentionally, um, to some effect. Linda Blair's in Spider Woman. Is it the wrong screamer? You're silly man. Two Kliqs is as natural as fancying two girls at the same time, but that is definitely natural. Misfits, it was great. I'm about to say, just ask Agent 70. Haha, no, stop. Misfits was great.
No, I had something to say. I had a wisecrack on the tip of my tongue. I chose to keep it to myself because it would reveal too much.
Misfits was great until all of the original cast left, and the last two seasons were weird and sucked like Nancy Reagan on the MTM lot. You are a wild boy for that one, and I can't believe I read that one. But also,
that's a reference.
That is absolutely a reference.
Reference.
But anyhow, back to the news. Avengers in-game directors, and this is a report, by the way. I should make that very clear, which it also says here that the Russo brothers are reportedly producing Captain America: Brave New World. Again, a report, which if that's the case, hey, they've done well by the other Captain America and Avengers property things that they've done. So if they have a hand in this, I'm okay with that. Hey, if they were directing it, all the better. But this article pretty much goes on to say that it wasn't even them that said it. It's like some editor. Says some editor named Matthew Schmidt recently updated his film credits, and Joe and Anthony's names are included with on Captain America: Brave New World. And this article goes on to note that the Russo brothers have been busy doing other stuff like Extraction and their production company. Other things. This article also says that this may be a contractual obligation or an indication that Marvel Studios has turned to the Russos for help making sure Brave New World lives up to the lofty expectations fans have had for the franchise. That is speculation, but you know what? Probably not wrong.
Right.
If in the latter case, at the very least. So there is that. Next up.
Donald Duck celebrates his 90th birthday this year, and to honor the occasion, Disney Animation has released a brand new Donald Duck short titled DIY Duck. In the story, Donald tries his hand at home repairs, which begins with the replacement of a light bulb. How many ducks does it take? And quickly turns into a series of comic catastrophes. His temper flares and his frustration grows as things spiral out of control and lead to an explosive finale. The short was written and directed by animator and Disney legend Mark Henn, who's been working on animated projects for Disney ever since The Fox and the Hound in 1981. Oh, goodness. Jeez. This is all on YouTube.
I haven't watched it yet. Also, there is going back to that Uncle Scrooge book. There is a couple of panels where Donald is used in pretty good effect. Amazing. Well, not even amazingly, but quite well, given something similar to this this short actually. But next up. G.I. Joe Transformers crossover movie lands Jurassic World writer Derek Connolly. So yeah, this is still that crossover thing that they're still talking about, and Chris Hemsworth, as far as we know, still at this point, it's still attached to this according to this article, and it says that the proposed film follows the events of last year's Transformers Rise of the Beast, and I know there was a teaser at the end linking the two franchises together, of which I have still not seen, but there is that. Next up.
Blue Beetle animated series is in the works as DC plots the next chapter for the superhero franchise. So Warner Brothers Animation and DC Studios are looking to continue telling Blue Beetle stories via an animated series currently in development. Sources close to production tell Deadline. Miguel Puga has been working on the project since early this year and will serve as the project's showrunner and director, with Christian Martinez set as writer. Okay. See if there's a date. Oh, so DC Studios and Warner Brothers Animation declined to comment for the story. We'll see what comes of it.
Yeah, I saw some hubbub out there talking about we won. I'm like, what did you win? Like, I get it, more Blue Beetle because I know people are fans, and still haven't seen that movie. Have you? Agent 70?
No.
Yeah, same. So yeah, I don't know. But
Sorry,
hey,
folks.
nah. I mean, we can't watch everything. But I heard it's not bad, so it's just a matter of us not getting around to it. It's out there. Fox and How, My Childhood, finally a G.I. Joe Transformers crossover film. Yeah, I'm kind of worried about it, honestly. But didn't Rise of the Beast bomb? I don't know that, so I would have to look. So, next up though, we finally know the fate of my. Basically, hey, My Adventures with Superman gets to season 3. I don't know why this article was written, such as this article writer was feeling some kind of way. I know it's clickbait, but whatever. Yeah, My Adventures with Superman is getting to season 3. I don't want to say it shouldn't be a surprise because that show is actually pretty good, but sometimes when a show is good, doesn't always net another season or 2. Next up.
Peacemaker Season 2 will feature a new opening dance number choreographed by Alan Tudyk's wife, Carissa Barton. Okay. Yeah. We'll see how fun and silly it is.
Right. I was about to say, apparently Alan Tudyk's wait. I thought I saw somewhere where he's also joining the cast, but I guess I don't know. Yeah, okay. We still don't have much more on that, but you know what? The Blue Beetle film was better than both Guyver films, but that's not saying much. No, that is very much not. Especially on Cartoon Network, Zaslav is in this. Yeah, we're still on that. Smallville star Kristen Crook opens up about not returning as Lana Lang in the final season. She basically said, I wanted to, I quote, I just wanted her to be off in an imaginary land. Just wanted her to keep living the life that she had gone off to live. I don't remember what that was back then because I vaguely remember anything about that show. So that was pretty much the reason why she didn't come back for the final season. She kind of goes on with some other quotes, but we'll go into that. Next up.
Alrighty. Let's see. The Amazing World of Gumball movie is not canceled, says the creator. Okay. It was announced a few years back that Hanna-Barbera Studios Europe would be working on both a new feature film project and a new season of the TV series for Warner Media. But apparently, there's still some hope for it. Nothing has changed. Okay.
I still stand behind, despite the troubles of the voice actor, the main voice actor. Gumball is a great show. it's a pretty great. Von Gloom says Christian Crook, my former crush. At least she didn't join off and join a cult. You're talking about the other girl that was on Smallville.
Oh, she did.
Not Kristen Crook.
Yeah, she did join the cult, if I'm not mistaken.
She did,
but she didn't do it hardcore.
Oh, because I knew there was the other girl.
Yeah, the other one went to jail.
Right. But I didn't know she also went. Okay. Is this you or me? I think this is you.
Wait. I did the Gumball one.
Oh, okay. That's right. You did. Transformers. Yeah, no, I shouldn't even take this one. Transformers 1 producer doesn't understand why fans love the original film. So this is Lorenzo Di Bonaventure. His quote is, "What's so surprising about the '86 film is how dark it is. Honestly, I don't understand why people love it so much. That's because it was just a cash grab for you. But for some, maybe it was their first cinematic experience, but it's a really downer movie. Not entirely wrong about part of that.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree.
Yeah,
You
yeah. I
know?
mean, very much was. But,
Yeah.
but as to people, why people write that's kind of the reason why some people. Well, people why people hated it. That was the same. It's the same reason why people liked it and hated it. I would say because what it was. Why is he creating a Transformers movie? Because he can get money off of it. And I'm pretty sure he's still got ties to the license as he still has. Still did. Again, cash. I feel like that's me being cynical, but probably not far off. Next up, though.
Next up, regular show and close enough creator J.G. Quintel has a new animated series in the works with Adult Swim called Super Mutant Magic Academy. And so this was revealed at the Annecy International Animation Film Festival 2024 convention this past week. Let's see. Yeah, I'm just looking for any sort of like window, but I guess it's still in the work. You know, it was just an announcement and it's in the works. There's no window yet for release.
Right. Because, yeah,
Okay.
it's just like that and some of the other stuff that we talked about last week. Like, yeah, some stuff got announced, but there was nothing concrete
Okay.
about when the stuff was coming out. Donald Glover and Zach Fox's animated comedy Yopa-Man is completely bonkers according to this article. Let's see. According to this article, it was 2.5 minutes. The first episode centers around the eccentric employees of a Waffle House inspired diner called Happy Grits. While beating up an unruly customer outside the diner, ripped from the headlines. Actually, I was inside, but anyway, the group transforms into Power Ranger style heroes to fight against the henchmen of a maniacal alien warlord who happens to be hovering in a ship above the restaurant. So that's out there on YouTube if you want to check that out. The episode was produced by 6 Points Harness Inc., who is a LA-based studio and who has worked with Donald Glover before. The show's website hints that more episodes of the series will be coming out soon, with Fox and Okir, who I guess was one of the people in the production company, looking to nurture the project, quote, without the influence or hindrance of a network, before turning Yopa-Man into a fully realized show. So if any of that... Oh, it's also described as a kind of a Devilman, Fooly Cooly, Evangelion 90s Cartoon Network type show. And of course, Black Southern folklore, music, comedy, fashion stuff. Also, according to TV Okir, who was a collaborator with those two folks. So, if any of that is of interest to you, and you can definitely tell a certain version of Fooly Cooly in the art style based on this, what I'm seeing, that might be something of interest to you. So Harry Potter meets X-Men, but with regular show type jokes. I guess I don't know. Next up, though.
So voice actor Ross Marquand recently spoke at GalaxyCon and made a mention about when the next season of Invincible might drop, and he hinted that it was possibly as early 2025 for release on season 3. Apparently, creator Robert Kirkman is aiming for a yearly release schedule, and as you recall, season 2 made jokes about the animation delays.
Yes, it did. Not wrong. Which, I mean, we weren't really, given the history of that show so far, we weren't really expecting to get that show anytime soon, or any more of that show anytime soon. So, you want to take this next one, actually?
Because I talked about it.
Yes.
Eric Kripke addresses certain fans finally realizing, that's me editorializing, The Boys was always about them. Somehow they made it to season 4 of the Prime Video series before realizing they were the butt of the joke. So The Boys season 4 has gotten some disparaging ratings on Rotten Tomatoes thanks to some of the most hilarious self-owns coming from a certain small demographic of fans who did not realize the show was a satire. Somehow it escaped them until just now that, yes, it's always been about them. In an interview with Variety, showrunner Eric Kripke discussed that even though he and his team did not set out to mirror real life, it just naturally played out that way in our current political climate. And yeah, it's pretty wild. It's pretty wild that these folks are now mad at the show being quote unquote woke all of a sudden. All of a sudden.
Mm-hmm.
What have you been watching for 4 years? 4 seasons.
Right.
Oh my god.
As we said before the show, like, you know what, people don't see themselves until they're hitting the head, until they're beat with the head, but as you said. So yeah, this actually makes me want to watch the show just to see how it came to this point.
Yeah,
how did it take so long for them to get to this point? And that's pretty funny. Also, as he said, it was like, yeah, they didn't set the mirror of real life. I'm like, yeah, but it's pretty easy to pull from, especially for a show like this. So that's kind of funny. Hell, shows do it all the time. Look at Dick Wolf and company with with the cop shows. Anyway, you're probably glad that you didn't get this one. Vin Diesel shows first Fast X Part 2 concept art. As I show the Instagram post for the people on the video version, yeah, it's just what I'm assuming is Dom in a muscle car on, I wouldn't say on the wrong side, but that could be just on that could be it could be a European version of that car. Actually, weirdly enough, it looks like the same car from Triple X, just with a stripe on it. But I could be wrong about that. Which actually, according to this, he was like filming locations, scouting for locations for another Riddick movie, and decided to drop this on folks. So yeah, there you go, folks. Your Fast X Part 2 update. Next up.
Wait a second. So it's going to release exactly 25 years since the first one came out. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I was trying to. I was trying to press past that. Yeah, we gotta.
Oh my god.
It didn't already feel old enough as it is.
Oh no. Oh my god.
Boy, I'm too old for this shit.
Oh man.
And as Von Gloom says, yes, it's for family.
Oh my god. Okay. So Talk to Me directors Danny and Michael Philippou, who are attached to direct a live-action adaptation of Capcom Street Fighter, will no longer helm the upcoming movie. The film losing its directors comes over a year after it was announced in April 2023. Looking at you, Blade. According to The Hollywood Reporter, the Philippou brothers will no longer direct the Street Fighter adaptation due to scheduling conflicts. Instead, they are choosing to focus on their A24 film, Bring Her Back. Okay.
And next we go to the anime corner. Save that one for next week. Von Gloom says 25 years. Guess these grades make perfect sense. Hey, you see all of this?
No.
I want Diesel to tell us when we're getting an Iron Giant sequel. Nah, some things are better left the way it is. So just you don't need that. Just go back to the old movie. And I say that as a person who has very little because that was past my time. Anyway, Anime Corner. Delicious in Dungeon will get a second season on Netflix. I still have not watched that show. But for the past few months, fantasy cooking anime Delicious in Dungeon, also known as Dungeon Meshi, has been a smash hit among anime fans. Now, as season 1 comes to close, the show officially has another season on its way, which I guess came shortly after the show's last episode of the season. So that's when the team behind the show announced the second season. So, and with a quick teaser to boot. So good, cool. Next up.
Kaiju number 8 is barreling towards the end of its debut season, and the creator behind it all has shared some special art for the launch of episode 10. Kaiju number 8 has kicked off the raid on Tachikawa Base arc with the anime's latest episodes as Hibino Kafka, who's one of the best characters, and the Defense Force have been flung into their next major fight by surprise. Let's see here. So the creator Naoya Matsumoto shared a special sketch on social media that you can check out on X/Twitter.
Demon Slayer arc train the Hashira training arc gets extended episodes 7 and 8, which are going to be in theaters in Japan. Don't get don't get too excited. Let's see. The 7th episode will air in a 40-minute time slot on Fuji. Oh wait, secure me. I'm sorry, I thought theaters. 40-minute time slot on Fuji TV in Japan, while episode 8, the final episode of the arc, which will be airing in a 60-minute time slot. Oh no, okay, here we go.
Crazy. Yeah, I was about to say these are the next 2 episodes because there are only 2 more left.
Right. It does. So there is a theatrical mention in here. So the final 2 episodes will also get a theatrical screening at the same time as the final episode broadcast on June 30th at Toho Cinema Shinjuku. So it's still in Japan. So after the screening of episode 8, a special talk will be held starting around 12:20 a.m. on July 1st with some of the series cast. Talk will also be streamed on Aniplex's YouTube channel. Check that out. Tickets go sell through a lottery system, but that has nothing to do with us because we can't get that here in the States. But yeah, so look forward to exercise episodes of these last 2 coming soon, of which I still need to catch up with. Next up.
Alrighty. So we're transitioning over to the manga corner or the manga news, right?
Yeah, before you say that, Von Gloom says Kaiju number 8 season is almost over, which I know you said it was pretty good. Also, 870. He says it's so good. Why can't they give us 20+ episodes like Dungeon Meshi? Well, different type.
Right, I was about to say different source material.
Yes, that. So they know what they're doing. Put it that way.
Yeah.
Anyway, manga corner.
Next up. The popular solo leveling Arise is set to expand on the lore of the original manhwa with its new release of a special one-shot webtoon. The comic centers on the game's new hunter, Alicia Ice Witch Blanche. Devereaux? No, I'm kidding.
I'm not gonna lie, I thought that same thing.
I do declare.
Nice.
Anyway. All right, let's see, when is this supposed to come out?
Yeah.
It doesn't say.
Oh no, June 14th is when it came out.
Oh, okay. It's already been viewed. I see it. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, Solo Leveling Arise is the mobile / I guess it's on PC also game that is out there for folks that did not know. And it's a gacha game like Genshin Impact and those other ones. It seems like I hadn't had a chance to play it fully yet, but I've seen it being played. Anywho's, One Punch Man announces extended hiatus. The report comes from the One Punch Man team itself as the editorial staff announced the hiatus. It turns out the manga is taking a 2-month break. So for those plotting out its return window, it will make a comeback in August of 2024. But so far, according to this article, no word has been given as to why why One Punch Man is manga specifically is taking a hiatus. And it then goes to talking about the artist Yusuke Murata, who is one of the hardest working people in the industry, according to this article. and his art is nothing short of impressive. Again, according to this article, I can't stress that enough because it's a little too glowing for my taste. But hey, I love One Punch Man, so it's good stuff. Anywho's next up.
Berserk is one of 3 titles to rank among the list of the New York Times bestsellers for the second month in a row, notably appearing alongside 2 other popular manga titles for the publication's June release, those being Chainsaw Man Volume 15 and Jujutsu Kaisen Volume 22. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. I know we had the story last week about that was about anime, but still, and I don't know we had another article previously about my manga and piracy, but not saying that this is going to change anything about that. But hey, book's still going good, like we said. And now we turn over into the comic book news, actually. My Adventures with Superman comic pays tribute to Dragon Ball Z and Akira Toriyama with special cover. If you're watching the video version, you can see the cover in question, which is a variant to My Adventures with Superman #4, which the first issue just came out, so it's going to be a minute before we even get to issue 4, which according to this article is September 9th, by the way. And yeah, like I said, if you're seeing if you're on the video version, you can see the reference and the material there. So good looking stuff though. And yeah, I mean, my adventure, not a surprise because My Adventure with Superman kind of wears its anime references on its sleeve, including the one from this week, as we mentioned earlier. So not a big surprise. Next up,
Plastic Man No More. It's a mature reader's comic from DC's Black Label by Christopher Cantwell, Alex Linz, Jacob Edgar, and Marcelo Manolo. Okay. So it's a 4-issue miniseries examining E.L. O'Brien's mortality. The series explores themes of body horror and the grim reality of aging. And let's see, this is launching on September 4th.
I mean, it's Christopher Cantwell, so I'll check it out. And the last Plastic Man book I remember reading was Gail Simone did a pretty amusing miniseries. Yeah, check it out, I guess. Von Gloom says those manga cards need breaks. Yes, they do. Something else I was going to say about this Plastic Man book, but I don't remember. Next up, superstar comic book artist calls out DC cover artist for alleged use of AI art. So, Adi Granov called out comic book cover artist Francesco Mattini for what Granov alleges is the use of generative artificial AI, at least in part to produce one of the 3 variant covers that Mattini, not Wutini, did for
Wutini!
Exactly. As revealed in DC's recent September 24 solicitation. Which, by the way, folks, if you want to check out the September 2024 solicitations, you can check out our show notes for this episode because most, if not all of them, are there. And boy, howdy. But yeah, the specific cover that has drawn Granov's allegation is Martina's variant for Action Comics in 69, which I believe this is the cover of which the people on the video version can check out right there. So yeah, I saw this out there, and I did see some hubbub. And granted, this article is 5 days old, and I saw some hubbub on the Twitters. That
Ouch! I see the flaw. Oh my god, that's crazy.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Agent 70, our resident artist, can check it out. But
apparently, he's a notorious swiper. Also, that's not exactly the best reputation you want to have in comic book art world.
Huh. Yeah. So, oh, okay, yeah. You can see where the if you scroll down to the scroll down a little bit before, you can see where the part of the art in question. And apparently related to it, DC pulls controversial content suspected of being produced by regenerative art, so that way I don't have to pull this for next. Because again, this was 5 years old, or 5 days old, so I wouldn't be surprised if DC was going to do something that, which feels like that could be an admission. Maybe not, but anyway. Next up.
12 years after it launched, Mark Millar's superhero saga Jupiter's Legacy is drawing to a close. I didn't know it was still going on. With a new 5-issue series from Dark Horse Comics, the aptly named Jupiter's Legacy finale will see the world's heroes trapped on an alien world, just as Earth faces the threat of invasion. It's going to be written by Mark Millar, with Tommy Lee Edwards handling the art duties, as he did on the saga's previous chapter, 2021's Jupiter's Legacy Requiem. Okay.
I think it's probably like Saga in the fact that it just kind of pops out there every now and then.
I guess. I mean,
so, I don't know.
He started this book in 2012.
Right.
2012.
Yeah.
I think I got the first issue.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy. And I apologize in advance if I butchered this name, but Pornsak Pinchetshote launching the Horizon Experiment, publishing and incubation program at Image Comics.
So good for him. This is the guy behind The Good Asian.
Yes, and I think there was a book that came out this week that he's a part of that I saw his name on. So yeah, celebrated Thai American comic book creator Pornsak Pinchetshote is launching, as I said, the Horizon Experiment, which is a series of 5 one-shot comic books. Each one features original protagonists from marginalized backgrounds set in a popular genre and inspired by pop culture icons. Each character's unique background allows the stories to go in new directions. So, and this article also mentions The Good Asian. That's cool.
He was cool. I actually met him briefly at New York Comic Con last year. He was walking the floor visiting with creators that he knew. He was not there as a guest of the show. So, but he was there speaking to a creator that I'm familiar with. So it was nice to meet him. Cool. Good guy.
Next up.
Alrighty, X-Men officially reboots a 2000s era hero with new design and backstory. Surge makes a thrilling appearance actually in Ultimate X-Men #4, showcasing her unique powers and Peach Momoko's new take on the character. So let's see. This is the 2000s era hero that we're speaking of, Surge.
So this also, I guess, technically spoilers because, well, not spoilers, but I think, when did we talk about the last? Was that last week or week before last
week? It was last week.
So this character popped up at the end of the book and did not know who it was, and now we do.
Mm-hmm.
Next up, though, X-Men officially debuts the Outliers, a new team of, quote, wild mutants. And this is, I guess, from Uncanny X-Men #2. That will be the book that will introduce them. Let's see. It's a new group of mutant characters who will offer a different take on mutant kind than the X-Men. And this article kind of goes into a little bit of other stuff of that, but this is the Gail Simone book that's come out of From the Ashes, or that's coming with From the Ashes. Which, side note, that Marvel Unlimited, which is not a sponsor but a tool, the book that I guess bridges the From the Ashes stuff has a second issue that is out now. We've been reading that and what it's dealing with. Slightly interesting, actually. So maybe something to check out if you have Marvel Unlimited. But yeah, and I think this is probably a September book. This Uncanny X-Men, because
Uncanny X-Men #2.
Yeah, because that's just going to start. Actually, what, next week? Is that the one that? No, is it? Adjectives is next week.
I don't even know.
There is an next book. I think there is an next book next week, but I can't remember if it was this one or the adjective. It's probably the other one, because if this is coming out in September, then it can't be. Next week. Next up, though,
Marvel's official timeline of its canon comic universe is maybe not as important as fans might think. Says top editor, Marvel's executive editor Tom Brevoort tells fans who keep worrying about timeline, it's fiction. Love it.
Yeah, of course, coming
Not
from
to
his
us,
Substack.
damn it. No, I'm kidding.
No, you're kind of right though, because there are fans who are like, "No, come on, man, you got to keep some things." But yeah, it probably actually in certain cases. But yeah, this is again coming from his Substack, so which you might want to check out because sometimes, most of the time, it's interesting for if not tidbits like this and other stuff he's talking about between him and Al Ewing's, which was kind of silly last week, or this week. So apparently, Marvel has an official podcast coming out as opposed to the 2 or 3 that they have already.
Oh no, they've all stopped. They've all
Did they?
stopped. Yeah.
Oh, so this is them kind of putting them all together into an actual.
They're rebooting it. Yeah.
Oh, I thought those were still going. Okay. So, but it says here from their page, dive into the Marvel universe for the latest news, interviews, and exclusive surprises on the official Marvel podcast. Catchy name. Marvel stars and creators talk about what's coming up next in movies, TV, comics, games, and more, and celebrate the legacy of their favorite Marvel adventures and characters. Oh Lord, are you still using that? You've become part of a bigger universe. You just don't know it yet. According to this Marvel article, by the way. I didn't know they had ended. So all of it ended? Or I guess it was only like 2 or 3. So.
Yep.
Okay, interesting. Next up, though.
Marvel is set to end the current Star Wars comics era in September of 2024 this year because it's, this is the period, these are the comics set in between The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, and they're going to end in Star Wars number 50 and Star Wars Darth Vader number 50. Crazy.
All right. Which, now that I think about it, I need to catch up with the last couple of issues of both of those books. But yeah, hey, things must end, and we'll return again, I guess. I guess they're gonna. I guess bears the question: where are they gonna go for the next one? Is it going to be closer to Return of the Jedi or after? But I guess we'll find out. Anyway, now we're getting some little toy news here. With this Hot Toys Wolverine collectible is going to murder your Deadpool action figures bub, according to this article. So it's a Hot Toys Wolverine figure, which means pricey and articulate. So the standard edition is $280, and then there's a deluxe edition. Or as I click through here, oh, that's just $340.
Nice. It's Hot Toys for you.
Yep, there it is, and you can see, here's some images to go along with it. It is Hugh Jackman. It is a yellow suit.
He's too tall.
It comes with a stand and some other things to go along with it. So yeah, here you go. Next up,
we have some in-package images of the Hasbro Marvel Legends series Strange Tales Blackheart Build-A-Figure Wave. And if I recall, I made a joke about when this Helverine thing came about a year or two ago. It was just the next variant of Wolverine action figures, and I was right.
Mm-hmm.
I was right.
I mean,
that's crazy. So,
is it really that hard to catch that though with some of the stuff that comes out?
Yeah,
I'm not taking away from you, but when you said that, then it was like, yeah, they could, but who knows? So you called that one absolutely correct.
All right. So I don't know if did we do a story on this yet?
Which one?
On this wave?
No.
So this wave consists of Damon Hellstrom, Bloodstorm from was it Mutant X?
I think you're right. You know what? I think we did, but I think we talked about the Build-A-Figure itself, not necessarily what was in the wave.
Oh, okay. All right. So It was Bloodstorm, Moon Knight Fist of Khonshu, another Dr. Voodoo, or Brother Voodoo, Um, Dracula, speaking of Blood Hunt, Lilith and the Helverine, or Wolverine Spirit of Vengeance, and the Blackheart. Blackheart is the Build-A-Figure,
Mm-hmm.
son of.
So I guess if you want to get some Midnight Suns action, you can pick up that Lilith.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, listen, if you want to do some Blood Hunt stuff, you can
Yeah.
pick up that Dracula. If you're a big Moon Knight fan, you know,
Yeah.
that's a kind of a classic looking Moon Knight with that belt. I don't know how different the Doctor Voodoo is, or the Brother Voodoo is from the Doctor Voodoo.
Right.
It's subtly different. And of course, when are we going to get another Damon Hellstrom?
Right. And of course, there's the Bloodstorm, which is the Storm variant for those who were probably collecting Storm variants
Right,
figures.
right.
There you go.
Yeah, Mutant X. That's what she was. Mutant X. Okay.
Right. Okay. All right. Next up. Actually, do you want to take this one? Since we talked about it earlier.
Let me open it up. Yeah, we talked about this in our pre-production meeting. So, Marvel vs. Capcom Fighting Collection. Arcade Classics brings 7 timeless games in an all-in-one package. So, you can join fans around the world in celebrating the legacy of some of these most beloved fighting games with the release of this fighting collection, Arcade Classics Marvel vs. Capcom, with physical and digital versions across Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4, and PC via Steam in 2024. The jam-packed collection includes 7 timeless games in an all-in-one package, including X-Men: Children of the Atom, Marvel Superheroes, Marvel vs. Capcom Clash of Superheroes, Marvel vs. Capcom 2 New Age of Heroes, Marvel Superheroes vs. Street Fighter, X-Men vs. Street Fighter, and The Punisher. These are some games that just haven't been that readily available since PS3.
Right.
So it's a big deal for a lot of people. And obviously, they're going to adjust some of the games to make it better to function online. Because they're all going to involve online. They're all going to involve the online aspect.
Right. And I'm sure probably they'll may possibly use this for Evo. Who knows?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not. Roddykat and I had this discussion. I may end up getting this on Steam because I can play it on PC, as opposed to getting. Like I laugh when they said PS4. I'm like, what? You mean no PS5? I'm not getting a Switch just for this, so I think I'm just going to end up getting it on Steam.
So, actually, I'm glad you mentioned that because I did see another article. It was like, wait, it's not even coming to Xbox either. So that's also curious. But I mean, obviously, you get it on a PS4, it's going to be playable on the PS5. It's just not a PS5, optimized version, I guess.
Right.
So, yeah, it's curious, but yeah, like this is a good list for this. Like, I kind of wish Konami would do something with the well, I know they have done collections of like the Turtles and whatnot, but I want them to kind of do something with like the Captain America games, or the Captain America and the other Avenger games, and put a bundle together for that stuff. But this is also kind of tempting, given, as I told Agent 70, like I have access to most, if not all of these games in one way, shape, or form. In fact, I thought about playing the Punisher game on stream somewhat recently. So, and chances are
I didn't know the Reavers were part of the Punisher game.
Yes.
Oh my god, that's so wild.
So you basically, it's basically you as the Punisher or Nick Fury are fighting against Reavers and I think some other folks. I think it's mainly the Reavers, but I think there's some other folks in there too.
That's crazy.
Yeah. But yeah, like I said, it's a good package. I can't remember if it has a price. It does not. Probably for these collections, usually about 40. Because it's Capcom. They could try to go for upwards of 50 and 60, but I think it'll probably be about 40 when it comes out. Ever it comes out. Which I think is coming fairly soon. This article doesn't necessarily have that information, but I think I saw somewhere in like September or something, or somewhere about that. I don't know. I have to look. Anyway,
We're halfway through the year, so
right? Because they just announced this at Summer Games Fest, and I'm sure they had been working on it prior to that, so it's got to be somewhat soon. Anyway, Star Wars Unlimited reveals Chewbacca and Wookiee Shadows of the Galaxy cards. So this is a first look at the set 2 of that card game. Yeah, there's a Chewbacca card. Go let the Wookiee win. Of course, that's a card. um, and apparently, the next set is going to contain over 250 cards, lining up with Spark Cut of Rebellion, which I think was another little mini set that happened. Oh no, that was the first set. Excuse me, which was the initial set. So yeah, dope price on this stuff, and price, but that is not there. So therefore, and no date as to when this is going to come out, but quite likely sometime before the at the end of the year, most likely. Next up,
McFarlane Toys unveils new DC Comics Platinum Edition figures. Highlights include Batman from the Bat Manga and Superboy from Teen Titans. Exclusive variants include a black and white deco and a Luthor TNA theme. There's also a all green Sergeant Rock figure.
I saw that and I was like, why are they just doing Army Man? But I forgot about Sergeant Rock.
Yeah.
Next up, though, Skeletor gets some horseplay with Mattel Creations Night Stalker. So there is Skeletor's horse, metallic, his iron horse, if you want to grab that. There's a stand, there's the box, there's a Skeletor figure, but I don't think the Skeletor figure comes with it, or maybe it does. Not seeing it. Oh, here we go. $33 plus shipping. Sales began on June 18th. Make sure. And there you go. Next up.
WizKids has announced a new Star Trek tabletop game due out for release later this year. Star Trek Captain's Chair is a new deck building game that features 6 different captains from the Star Trek universe competing in different ways. Okay, let's see here. Star Trek Captain's Chair was designed by David Turczi and Nigel Buckle, who also designed Voidfall and the Imperium series. The game will be released in the 4th quarter of 2024.
I will probably be looking at. I'm going to take these next 2 because they're related. First off, we have a review for the Star Trek Next Generation 1/6 Geordi figure, which I guess is already out. And this article goes way too long into the history of Geordi LaForge than it needs to before getting into, I would argue, a way similarly too long review of it. But you can see the figure, the accoutrement it comes with. It's posable, and also going into the next article, Exo6, which, by the way, that is the company that made that figure, also announced a new Jean-Luc Picard figure, collectible figure, which also has like multiple hands, tricorder, phaser, and other accoutrement. So yeah, there's a pre-order for the Picard figure that closes on July 4th, and the figures are set to be shipped sometime during the 3rd or 4th quarter of 2024. And if you're watching the video version, you can see a concept of the Picard figure right there. Looks pretty good. Next up.
Goodness gracious. So Bumblebee is joining Optimus Prime as the next transformable Transformers Lego set with 950 pieces. It's available starting on July 1st. That's soon, folks. So yeah, this article goes on to show, some of the cool things you can do, some of the things that you have to do to transform them. But yeah, it's basically based on the original 80s version of Bumblebee, the VW Bug.
Yep. Is there a price?
I'm gonna see. Scroll. All right, here we go. Let's see. When it's available starting on July 1st for Lego Insiders, or July 4th for everyone else. So July 4th if you're not a Lego Insider. The 950-piece Bumblebee will be almost $100 cheaper than Optimus Prime at $89. Okay. Because I guess Optimus costs $180. Goodness
Right.
gracious.
But Lego fans, folks. Last
For
but
real?
not least, Skybound Image and Hasbro announced the Transformers Compendium Volume 1. Because you kind of figured it was going to happen after that G.I. Joe,
Right.
G.I. Joe one happened. Which, by the way, is still going as of this recording. So I think those are still another six days ago, and one of us may have backed it.
Wow, wasn't me.
So guess who that was?
Process of elimination, folks.
Exactly. So yeah, let's see. Transformers Compendium Volume 1 collects Marvel's original 1984 Transformers series. Will debut next spring. Check out the official details in this article with the book's Daniel Warren Johnson cover. It's going to collect issues 1 to 44 of the original Transformers comic and Headmasters 1 to 4 limited series. And it looks to be hitting comic shops on April 9th, 2025, according to Skybound press release. And you can see the Daniel Warren Johnson cover there. Looks pretty good. And yeah, I don't see a Kickstarter for this one. Hell, with what they're making off that G.I. Joe one, they don't necessarily have to, but they probably might try. Just to say. But that's it, folks, for the news. But before we go into the news, before we go into the last ad read, really quick, I don't know if Agent 70 got his, but I'm going to show something off very quick. Yeah, this is usually him, not me.
What's that?
Folks, Marvel Legends Wonder Man showed up in the movie.
Oh, nice. I haven't gotten mine yet.
Yeah,
I just
yeah, when I told Agent 70 about it a few days ago, I had already put in my order like prior to it, so and it was like coming the next day from then. There's that. Yeah, but there it is right there. You can see it if you're watching the video version. See the back of it right there.
Yeah, Leisure Suit Wonder Man, 80s classic.
Yep, indeed. Comes with a arm for Puff Adder.
70s and 80s classic. What am I saying?
Yeah, basically. But this Build-A-Figure is not going to be one that I'm going to build anyway. Although I do remember us talking about the set. I do remember a couple other ones that I was considering getting. Yeah, there you go, folks. Leisure Suit Wonder Man and all his not past his glory.
Right. I actually just placed an order for that and another figure, which I finally got around to ordering. So we'll see it probably next episode.
Ooh, nice. And with that, can we get one last ad read?
Our last ad read of the night. Help us keep our podcast free by shopping at Amazon. Visit cspn.us, then click the Keep Our Podcast Free link at the top of the page. From there, scroll down and click on the Amazon link to shop. Purchase items from Amazon as you normally would, whether it's books, music, electronics, jewelry, apparel, or Marvel Legends. For every purchase made on Amazon through our link, Amazon sends the CSPN a payment. It helps us keep the Comic Book Chronicles podcast free for our listeners at no extra cost to you. Amazon.com through CSPN.us. Do it today.
Von Gloom said it was Tim. No, I don't know if Tim would be interested in that. Should ask him though. Probably the Transformers one. I think would be one he'd be interested in.
That's all before his time though.
Yeah, I know, but he might have gone back and been curious about some of that stuff. I don't know, but you are right because he is the youngest one of all of us in this.
Right. And I've made a joke before that I have the silent interlude issue and I have annuals that I wanted, that I liked as
Right.
back issues. So I'm okay with not having the rest of the GI Joe individual issues.
Yeah,
You
I
know, there's a
thought,
couple that I really would like to have in better condition, like the fighter duel between Wild Weasel and Ace.
you
That's
remember
a
that better than
great
I
issue.
do. Right. I was gonna say there was a stretch goal in relation to Silent Interlude actually that I saw still on the page because they have been stacking stretch goals since they very much made their goal.
Right.
Apparently they made it very very quick according to and they even posted on the page. But what was I gonna say? Yeah, so does this that there may be something in that you might be interested in along those lines. I don't know. I can't remember.
I'll take
Prepass.
again. I doubt that I would be backing, but because I don't have the shelf space for that stuff.
And it's coming out the paperback. I mean, those are
Mm.
coming out to paperback anyway, and so they're going to and just like that Transformers one. They're going to be out in stores, probably
Right.
in some limited fashion. So even if you didn't back it, you'll probably be able to get your hands on them. So, but yeah, pre-pacifist Simon and Hollywood Himbo. Ugh, Pat Simon. I hope they don't do that. They hadn't done a figure for that green and red joint, did they?
No. They've just done the black and now the leisure suit.
Gotcha. Yeah, they can away from that last one, but I know they won't. Anyway, folks, that is the end of the show because it's already late. And yeah, we'll be back next week with more Star Wars, more adventures with Superman.
Superman.
That's a Mad Magazine variant. If I hadn't heard it, and I'm pretty sure they did do that one back in the
Right.
day. Yeah, and more comics and next week's going to be a good one. It's hopefully for one particular book of interest to both Agent 70 and I. So looking forward to that one. And with that, you can find me, Roddykat, on Twitter at Roddykat. You can also find me at News Nerds Need on Twitter. You can find me at CB Caps on Instagram. Agent_70 on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads. You can also find this here podcast on the Cold Slither Podcast Network. That's ESPN.us.
Do it today.
You can also find us on your podcast perusal place of choice, whether it be Apple iTunes, aka Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or the Cold Slither Podcast Network SoundCloud page.
Make sure to click like, subscribe, and leave us all the positive 5-star reviews, especially on Apple Podcasts, because that helps people find our show.
Indeed, and you can find us recording mostly every Thursday night. I have to say that, gotta have an asterisk there. Thursday night, 9:30 Eastern, on the YouTube channel of the Kliq Nation. That's youtube.com/the Kliq Nation. Like our man, like our man Von Gloom there, who's in the chat, and also twitch.tv/Comic Book Chronicles.
Yes, make sure to click like, subscribe, hit that notification button so you know when we're on live, and smash that like button.
Indeed, and Vine Gloob knows the vibe, the coastal of the vibes going on here. You know what the deal is. And with that, folks, this has been Comic Book Chronicles. Peace.
Peace. One.
I love it when a plan comes together.